So I'm here for this exhibition at Riccardo Crespi's gallery, which is my fourth solo exhibition at the gallery, and we've actually been working together for 10 years, so it's a sort of quite an important thing for me. So the show is called Lutte, permanente, avec, la surface, which is a title that I had in mind, and sometimes I collect titles and they just stay in limbo until there's a good occasion or opportunity to kind of use them. And so I had this title in mind when I started working with drawings about perspective, and some of them are in the show here in the bottom of the gallery, which are big charcoal drawings on which I started to think about what's the perspective doing to the representation of object. I mean, it's very, very common idea. When you start to draw something, there's always this question that arises, even though it's not always conscious, but what do you do with the flatness of the paper to represent some depth, which is the most basic question in drawing. I've had the title, and it also came up with this series of drawings I started especially for the show, drawings of the Halong Bay, where I've been to in 2004, and I was 14, and I was very, very impressed by the place, and I did a lot of drawing, a sort of inventaire of all the shape of the rocks, these massive rocks. They're not really islands, they're really rocks, and when you sail around them, there was this very, very strong feeling that it would never end, that you're in a place that never end, and in a way has no depth, and the depth comes to you, but there's always another depth behind. And it was a very, very strange place actually. It's a very touristic place, but it still retains its impressiveness. And there's also one work that is a bit different, which is an animation that I made with a musician called Riccardo. It was a very interesting work to do because I started to work from the music, which is a loop, and in that animation you also have this over-changing, the background, the set of the story keeps changing, keeps moving. And it's a very basic story. A man meets a woman, and the woman disappears, and the man can't find the woman, and he finds her again, but she goes away again, and they find. So it's this never-ending love basic story, and but the set in which they are, it's displayed, is in constant movement, and in fact reflects the instability of the relationship going on. Downstairs in the gallery, I'm showing 3 very big charcoal drawings, which I've made over last year. The first one I made comes from a residency that I did in Dublin at the Museum of Modern Art, and I went to the Chester Beatty Library in Dublin to look for a very long time to Japanese prints and Persian prints, and there was this question of perspective that was always there, and the way also the decor gets into the image, but as somehow space of its own, in a way like if you look at Japanese paintings from the 17th century, you have a person which is drawn normally, and then the print of their dress will be completely flat and does not respect all the folds of the garment. So I was very interested of this, the way the ornament in the image has some sort of autonomy from the subject it is supposed to be on. And then I worked on the second one, which is a paysage géométrique d'intérieur that has the table. And I wanted to show the floor, and I wanted to display the floor as a sort of Islamic pattern, which is this fractal type of drawings. And the floor has no perspective, so the floor really takes its autonomy from the space it is supposed to represent. Then the third one is actually comes from my studio in Avignon, my new studio in Avignon, and I've got these tiles on the floor with some leaves on it, and when I look through the window there's an olive tree, and I've got these leaves outside and these leaves inside, and I was thinking, well, if I draw them both on the drawing, they could both become ornamental or a representation, and I like the way it could mix. So I've got these big drawings and also some piezography that are quite new, where I played. It's always a question about what can you put in a decor in a way, and the relationship I've got with architecture and with domestic space is always about which kind of story can you build in it. So I'm always interested in how do you draw it, but also what you can put in it. And this big piezography called La Forme d'une Ville, le cœur de Mortel, are drawings of an interior after drawings from a German architect called Heinrich Dessenau. And I just drew his interior, and then on the table I displayed a little city, a little model city. The interior doesn't change, the city on the table changes on every drawing. And it was the idea, a very simple idea, that to think the city, you need to be in the countryside. You need to be in a quiet place with a white space to project things, as much as you need to be in the city to feel it. But there's this space for thinking that was displayed there. And this all worked with photographs. I make a lot of photographs all the time, and sometimes they end up in the show, sometimes not. But when I take them, when I choose them for an exhibition, it's always in relationship to the question that I've been asked in the drawings or in other works.